Sarah's 60th birthday had been a miracle. She stood frozen, tears streaming down her face, as Kai, her eldest adopted son, handed her the keys to a brand new house built by her 5 boys, but life wasn't done surprising her. A year later, the impossible happened. Kai, Leo, Ethan, Noah, and Sam all got married on the same day in a bustling Chicago church, their laughter echoing through the city streets. Their 5 wives, each glowing with joy, gave birth in the same year, but in different months. Kai's wife, Anna, delivered twin girls in March, and Kai named them Rose and Mary, a tribute to Sarah, the woman who'd poured her blood, sweat, and soul into raising him and his brothers. Sarah, now 61, held the tiny girls, her hands trembling, her eyes brimming with tears. What did these names mean to Kai? Why choose them now? The questions hung in the air, a mystery pulling the heart tight, urging the story forward. Sarah's heart swelled as she cradled each of her 6 grandchildren, 4 girls and 2 boys born that year. Leo's wife had a boy in May, Ethan's a girl in July, Noah's another girl in September, and Sam's a boy in November. The urban neighborhood buzzed with the news, their story spreading like wildfire. People whispered in corner stores and barbershops about Sarah, the childless woman who'd turned loneliness into a legacy, raising 5 unwanted boys into men of honor. Social media lit up with their tale, hashtags trending as strangers marveled at her journey. But fate, always a tricky writer, had more in store, a test that would shake her to the core. One crisp afternoon, Sarah was riding back from Sam's house, her youngest son, where she'd been playing with his newborn boy. Laughter still lingered on her lips when her driver slowed near her street. A small crowd had gathered, their murmurs sharp with worry. Sarah's stomach twisted. What was wrong? She stepped out, her eyes locking on a sight that stopped her heart. A 7-year-old boy in a torn school uniform lay unconscious on the pavement, his 9-year-old sister sobbing beside him. He collapsed, the girl whispered, her voice breaking. He was so hungry. Sarah's breath caught, her body moving before her mind could catch up. She scooped the boy into her arms, shouting for her driver to rush them to the hospital. The hospital lights buzzed coldly as doctors worked, but Sarah knew the truth in her bones. The boy slipped away, alone, hungry, forgotten. Her knees buckled and she collapsed into a chair, sobs tearing through her. He wasn't her grandson, but he felt like one, a piece of her heart breaking with him. That night, sleep refused to come. Sarah sat by her window, the city lights blurring through her tears, her mind replaying the girl's words. He was so hungry. Guilt gnawed at her. Could she have done more? At 5 a.m., a spark lit in her grief. A free restaurant for underprivileged kids, right on her street, open Monday to Friday. No child would go hungry again, not on her watch. She opened the family group chat, her fingers trembling as she typed to Kai, Leo, Ethan, Noah, and Sam. She told them about the boy, her voice cracking in the voice note, and shared her plan. Her sons' replies flooded in, their voices thick with emotion. "We're with you, Mama," Kai said, his tone fierce with pride. "We'll make it happen. Money, workers, everything." Sarah's heart lifted, but the boy's face haunted her. The restaurant would be her promise, a vow to him, to every child. Planning began that day, her sons diving in with love and grit, their urban roots fueling their drive. Months later, the restaurant stood ready, a small but bright space on their busy Chicago street. They named it Mama Sarah's Free Kitchen, a beacon of hope. Chefs stirred pots, workers set tables, and the doors opened with a cheer. Kids from the neighborhood poured in after school, their laughter filling the air, their stomachs full for the first time in days. Sarah watched, her eyes misty, as a girl with pigtails hugged her, whispering, "Thank you, Grandma Sarah." The impact rippled. Kids who'd skipped school from hunger now attended regularly, their smiles brighter than the city lights. The community noticed. One evening, parents and guardians gathered, their arms full of gifts, handmade cards, baskets of fruit, even a tiny bracelet for Sarah. "You saved our kids," a father said, his voice thick. Sarah's chest tightened with pride, but a new wave was coming. Social media exploded, her story going viral again. Donations poured in. Money, food, even volunteers to pay the staff. Food companies pledged monthly supplies, and soon the storeroom overflowed. Sarah's dream had grown beyond her street, touching hearts across the city. The chapter ends with Sarah standing in Mama Sarah's free kitchen, watching kids laugh over bowls of soup. Her grandchildren's names, Rose and Mary, echo in her mind, a reminder of the love that started it all. But a shadow looms. Christmas is coming, and with it, a ghost from her past. The boy's death still weighs on her, and a question lingers. What will she face next? The stage is set, the heart racing, waiting for the next twist. The Christmas crowd buzzed with joy, but Sarah froze mid-step, her heart slamming against her ribs. A man's ragged figure in the food line looked exactly like James, the husband who'd vanished 27 years ago. Her sons, Kai, Leo, Ethan, Noah, and Sam, were handing out gifts with their wives and 6 grandchildren, laughter ringing through the chilly Chicago street outside Mama Sarah's free kitchen. Sarah had been serving meals with a smile, her heart full from feeding hungry kids, when her eyes caught him. Was it really James? Why was he here now after all these years? The questions gripped her, a wall of shock holding her still. Her breath shallow as the past roared back to life. She wiped her eyes, blinked hard, and looked again. Time slowed as the man turned. His face, once strong and proud, was now thin, worn, etched with regret. It was James, the man who'd kissed her on their wedding day, promising to love her through anything, only to leave when she couldn't give him children. Sarah's hands trembled as memories flooded in, the warmth of his laugh, the cold of an empty house, the note that shattered her heart. She took a step closer, then another, her pulse pounding. Finally, she tapped his shoulder. He turned, and Sarah screamed, not from fear, but from a wound reopening, raw and bleeding after decades. "Sarah," James whispered, his voice barely a breath over the Christmas chatter. His eyes, hollow with years of sorrow, met hers, and something shifted. He saw not just her, but everything they'd lost. Sarah couldn't speak, her throat tight with pain. All those nights she'd cried, wondering what she'd done wrong, wondering if he'd ever felt a flicker of remorse. Now, here he stood, a broken stranger in line for food, far from the man who'd walked away from love without a word. Her mind raced. Should she confront him or turn away? The choice loomed, heavy with the weight of 27 years. Sarah turned, her legs shaking, and walked back to the serving table. Kai noticed first, his brow furrowing. "Mama, what's wrong?" he asked, his voice low. She shook her head, unable to form words, her eyes darting back to James. Her sons exchanged glances, concern flashing between them, but they respected her silence. The day blurred on, gifts handed out, children dancing, her grandchildren tugging at her skirt, but a storm raged inside her. James's face haunted her, his trembling hands, a mirror of her own broken dreams. That night, alone in her room, Sarah sat by the window, the city lights twinkling like distant stars. For the first time in years, she let herself remember his gentle touch, the way he'd hum while cooking the morning she woke, to an empty bed and a note that read, "I'm sorry." Tears slipped down her cheeks as she whispered to the dark, "Why, James?" The question had no answer, but it burned, a fire that had never died. Sleep came in fits, her dreams a tangle of the past, and the boys she couldn't save, their faces merging in her grief. Morning broke, and Sarah made a choice. She called Kai and Leo to her room, her voice steady but heavy. "That man yesterday, it was James," she said, watching their eyes widen. "He's the one who left me 27 years ago when I couldn't have kids." Her son sat in stunned silence as she continued. "I want to know where he's staying. I need to hear why he walked away." Leo hesitated, his voice soft. "You sure, Mama?" She nodded, her jaw set. "I've wondered too long. I deserve the truth." Kai left to investigate, his steps quick with purpose. By afternoon, he returned, his face grim. "He moved here last week, working as a gatekeeper near the market. He's got nothing left. Lost it all." Sarah stood still, the words sinking in. The man who'd once had everything, pride, strength, her love, was now a shadow. "Take me to him," she said, her voice firm. Kai opened his mouth to protest, but Leo placed a hand on his shoulder. They drove in silence, the city's hum, a distant echo to Sarah's racing thoughts. They arrived at a tiny gatekeeper's room near the market, the air thick with the smell of exhaust and street food. James sat on a worn chair staring at the floor, his hands clasped tight. He looked up as they entered, shock flashing in his eyes. Sarah stepped forward, her face unreadable, her voice soft but steady. "I want to know, James, why did you leave me?" The question hung like a blade, sharp with 27 years of waiting. James stood slowly, his body frail, his voice trembling. "I left because I was ashamed," he began, his eyes dropping. "The doctors, the failed treatments, the way you cried at night. I heard you, even when you thought I didn't. I felt like I failed you, like I wasn't man enough to give you the life we wanted." Tears welled in his eyes as he whispered, "I thought walking away would set you free, that someone else could make you happy, give you kids." Sarah listened, her heart a storm of pain and clarity. She spoke, her voice heavy but calm. "You didn't set me free, James. You broke me." The words weren't angry, just raw, carrying the weight of years. "I spent so long thinking I wasn't enough, but you just gave up." Kai and Leo stood silent, their fists clenched, watching their mother face the man who'd shattered her. The chapter ends with James dropping his head, tears falling to the cracked floor. Sarah stands tall, her strength a quiet fire, the city outside humming with life. A twist looms. Will she forgive him or walk away forever? The boy's death still lingers in her mind, and now James's return threatens to unravel her peace. The tension builds, leaving the heart racing for what comes next. James's tears hit the cracked floor of the tiny gatekeeper's room, his confession hanging heavy in the air. Sarah stood tall, her heart a battlefield of pain and strength as Kai and Leo watched their mother confront the man who'd abandoned her 27 years ago. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness," James whispered, his voice breaking, "but I've carried this regret every day. I watched you from afar, saw how you raised those boys, how you became a queen." Sarah's breath caught. He'd been watching her? The revelation twisted like a knife, a secret that deepened the wound. Would she let him back into her life or close the door forever? The choice loomed, a storm brewing in her chest, pulling the heart toward an answer. Sarah sighed, her eyes tracing the lines of James's broken face. "I forgave you long ago," she said softly, her voice steady but heavy. "Not because you deserved it, but because I needed to stop letting your choice define me." Kai and Leo exchanged glances, their faces softening with pride. Sarah turned to them, her gaze firm. This man isn't my husband anymore, but he's still human. He needs help. Her sons nodded, their loyalty unwavering, and without hesitation, Kai offered James a place to stay, a small room near Mama Sarah's free kitchen. It wasn't out of duty, but love, the same love that had built their family, the same love that fed hungry kids. The weeks that followed were quiet but transformative. Sarah helped James rebuild, her actions gentle but firm. He started with small jobs at the restaurant, washing dishes, sweeping floors, his hands shaky but determined. Sarah watched from a distance, her heart a mix of peace and memory. One evening, as she served meals to laughing kids, a twist unfolded. A local business owner, moved by Sarah's viral story, offered James a chance to manage a small delivery service. James blinked in disbelief, his eyes meeting Sarah's across the room. "You gave me this," he mouthed, gratitude shining through his tears. Sarah nodded, a flicker of warmth breaking through her guarded heart. A year passed, and James's life began to bloom. His delivery business grew not from luck, but from humility and hard work, fueled by the second chance Sarah had given him. On a sunny afternoon, he stood at the gate of Sarah's house, the one her sons had built for her 60th birthday. He wasn't the man who'd walked away decades ago, but a new version, changed by mercy. He stepped inside, walked up to Sarah, and knelt before her. "Thank you, Ma," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "for transforming my life." Sarah looked down at him, her eyes soft, no trace of anger or regret, just peace. She reached out, her hand resting on his shoulder. "I didn't do anything for you," she said gently, "but God did. All the glory belongs to Him. It's not about what we chase, it's about the mercy that finds us when we least deserve it." James lowered his head, a smile breaking through for the first time in years, not for himself, but for the love Sarah had always known, a love that didn't walk away, a love that forgave, a love that built kings. Sarah's legacy grew stronger in Chicago's urban heart. Mama Sarah's free kitchen thrived, feeding more kids each day, their laughter a melody of hope. Kai, Leo, Ethan, Noah, and Sam expanded the restaurant, adding a small library for the children to study after meals. The community rallied, donations pouring in, and the story of Sarah's forgiveness spread online, touching hearts worldwide. People posted, "She didn't just feed bodies, she fed souls," with hashtags trending again. One evening, Sarah sat with her 6 grandchildren, Rose, Mary, and the others, on the porch of her house, the city lights twinkling beyond. Kai sat beside her, his twin girls on his lap. "You named them after me," Sarah said softly, her voice thick. Kai nodded, his eyes warm. "Rose and Mary, because you're the root of everything good in us, Mama." Sarah's tears fell, not from pain, but from a joy so deep it felt like flying. She'd turned loneliness into a legacy, pain into purpose, and now even betrayal into healing. The story ends with Sarah looking out at the city, her hand resting on James's shoulders. He stood nearby, a quiet part of her world again, not as a husband, but as a testament to mercy. Her sons, their wives, and her grandchildren surround her, their laughter, a song of freedom. The emotional punch lands hard. Sarah's life wasn't the one she'd dreamed of, but through love, she'd built something greater, a family, a mission, a legacy written in meals served, hearts healed, and forgiveness given. The screen fades with a final note. True strength is in forgiveness, not for others, but for yourself. Sarah's story reminds us that love doesn't need perfection, just a willing heart.